Hello everyone, welcome to the instructions for the first major assignment, which is the adaptation studies essay. This is a 2 to 3 full page essay, so minimum 2 full pages, which also excludes the works cited page. Type, double space, one's margins, 12.5 times the Roman. As I mentioned on the syllabus, proper MLA format should be followed for these essays. And then you want to submit a docx, ODT, or RTF files only. We can do PDFs in Canvas, but because of the new PDF updates, it's much harder for screen readers and it's much harder to embed comments. These are going to be the easiest. The suggested due date is Monday, June 3rd at 11:59 p.m. In terms of the genre, this is what we call a comparative analysis and a synthesis essay. So you're making your own arguments, but it is basically, a compare and contrast kind of essay in and of itself. So here's the kind of main question you want to answer with this essay. How much should scholars compare and contrast the literature and film pairs when analyzing and studying adaptations? This is pretty much the cornerstone of this class, right? This class is based on, whenever they created it like 30 years ago, it's based on adaptation studies, right? We're reading the original works of literature, we're watching the film adaptations, and we're comparing and contrasting, right, those differences and similarities and so forth. But of course, should we, right? Should we look at them more independently? Some scholars would argue that this class is outdated in a way because adaptation studies is much more than just comparing and contrasting the literature and film pairs, right? Certain, like, and I've done this too with this class, scholars currently in this kind of field of study would argue that we should do the reverse, right? Maybe watch the film first, then go back to the original. Or we should watch, more film adaptations and really look into, how people take literature in a numerous, multimedia kind of fashion. And what are we looking for? Meaning, theme, all that stuff. So there's a lot of debate about this, right? So for this essay, you want to research and incorporate at least 2 scholarly sources. So that's a minimum objective for the, not only obviously this assignment, but also for the class itself. This is again a WE designated course, so you have to incorporate research into a lot of things we do. And again, the general idea is, of course, film adaptations. So a couple of terms, if you're not familiar with: fidelity, film adaptation, intertextuality, appropriation, parody, adaptation studies, adaptation criticism, the dialogic process, or any kind of terms you find during the research. But these are the general ones. Again, you could also focus on articles that, I don't like that repetition. There we go. That pretty much analyze any work of literature, and of course, it's film adaptation. So, again, your main arguments should discuss your interpretations concerning if critics should focus on issues of fidelity when studying and analyzing film adaptations of literature, or if critics should look at each work separately, right? Again, this class, the way it was designed, numerous years ago, decades ago, it was obsessed with fidelity, right? How similar or different is the film from the piece of literature? But is that constraining? Is that too limiting to study film and literature? So that's the kind of main argument that you're going to be making. Now, you should reference and analyze, any I should say any adaptation pair from this course, or any others that you're familiar with, right? So if you're a Marvel fan, DC fan, if you're a Harry Potter fan, if you're a Hunger Games fan, Twilight fan, right? Any The Help, like any kind of major adaptations that have come out, so think about that. As long as they're peer-reviewed scholarly sources, you're fine. Now, the best place to start would be UNCP's Primo, right? So most of you, if you're not transfers, you should be familiar with this. This is the easiest. We'll take you through it in a moment. This is one of the easiest things to use. I would just start with everything. You're in a library. I would just do like film adaptations, right? And then you look at everything and see what happens, right? So, oh, look at that. Analyzing literature film adaptations from 2011, right? So, and again, I'm just on the book, but you could do, journals. You could do open access, make sure they're, peer-reviewed journals, right? Make sure they're free, right? So, there's all sorts of reasons why you would want, and, again, for our purposes, because you're not going to, read an entire book, just read a chapter, that's fine. You don't need to read a whole entire book, but there's a lot of great things that you could find that are really relevant, really, current, right? So, really look into what we have access to through the library database. Another fun one, and this would be for more kind of recent film adaptations, is The Artifice. This is, if you notice, film, TV, animation, anime, manga, comics, games, literature, arts, writing, and so forth, right? This is another peer-reviewed open access journal, and as you can see, very, very pop culture oriented, right? And you could see you could even start writing, right? And there's a lot of important elements, right, to this journal, because they have really modern, up-to-date kind of ideas, right? Even here, right? So this is a good one to use, especially if you want to look at specific film adaptations that you're a fan of, right? Again, Marvel or something like that. So either these websites are going to be your friend, right? Now, you don't want to avoid, you don't want to kind of over summarize. You want to avoid over summarizing. Consider that the audience has read the work, watched the movie, been exposed to the key terms. You don't need to define things. This is, again, an academic argument. So you want to argue your interpretation of the ideas. Now, will you have to explain the works? Will you have to connect your sources to your arguments? Of course, but you don't need to over summarize. And of course, you don't want to evaluate. You want to refrain from any kind of judgment. You don't need to tell me if adaptations are good or bad, right? You want to focus on the meaning, right? That's the kind of key issue. And obviously, of course, avoid AI, avoid plagiarizing, because we do have those checkers and things. So, in terms of the grading scale, right, there should always be a title to your essay that reflects your thesis. So that is 0 to 5. There should be a presentation of overall ideas, cohesion, and so forth. There should be a purpose to your conclusion, not just repeating yourself, right? 0 to 10. There should be a specific thesis, right? 0 to 5. Focus, right? Staying on a singular focus, right? 0 to 10. Topic sense argumentation. Everything should be framed within that Tolman model. Claim, data, warrant. Every supporting paragraph in academic essays, except for the intro, pretty much follow that model. So go back to kind of comp 1, comp 2. Flow. Again, making sure all the ideas, not just, using one-word transitions, make sure everything connects, make sure everything flows well. Same thing with that order structure. Again, everything should be argumentative, right? Every paragraph should follow this kind of structure where you state your topic sentence argument, you present the data, the sources, the examples, and then explain, because you can't just end there, right? You want to explain how these further your argument, disprove other people's arguments, and so on. And then, of course, logical, analytical arguments, 0 to 10. Detail from the sources, 0 to 10. Relevancy of the sources, very important, right? Make sure that they are scholarly. Make sure that they are within the last 20 years, right? A 0 to 10, that should be automatic 10 for everybody. Grammar, of course, important, right? I'm looking for, again, standard diction, right? Not conversational. Proper syntax, right? Proper word usage and so forth, 0 to 5. And then, of course, format still matters, 0 to 5. And all of that adds up to 100. Now, in terms of, if you notice with the assignment forums, right? So one of the first assignments we have in week 1 is just finding one of those sources that you'll use. So you'll already have at least one source and a kind of a mini explanation of what you think the source is about and why you think it's going to be helpful for the essay. So you'll be about like a quarter done before you even start the essay. And then, if you notice, I also have examples. Get out of here. Get out of here. So I have like an A paper example and a C paper example from previous courses about someone was arguing about fidelity, right? And this was going back, this was last year even. And then I have a C paper, also from the spring semester last year, talking about the color purple, right? So, and that would be, again, great choice to use, because especially now with the new Color Purple movie, an adaptation, right? And you'll see the various points that they lost, right? They didn't really have a strong analysis. They didn't really have strong detail, right? They found great sources, but it just wasn't argumentative. There was really no argument. There's no focus, looking out, like not even the title. Like notice how the title is just, what they title it? Adaptation Studies Essay, right? We want an argument, right? So we just want to have, again, a really good kind of sense of, what you're doing, why you're doing it, what your argument is for the first essay. And again, you have a couple of different models to follow. Obviously, if you have questions, that's what this major forum is for, right? And then email me as well. And as I said, you could submit drafts about a day before it's due. Hit the wrong button there. Day before it's due. So you'll have plenty of time to kind of workshop or brainstorm if you want to use that general discussion board, or email me. This essay, again, should be a little bit time consuming with the research, but in terms of argumentation, fun, because we all have ideas about this, especially anytime you've read something or you've watched the movie first and gone back to the piece of literature. We all have opinions about, the differences and similarities between the works. So what should we do with that, right? Should we study that? Should we not study that? What's the basis of those kind of differences between film and literature? Again, good luck. Use all the resources you have. If you have questions, email me or post them to the discussion forum. If not, good luck on this assignment as well as all the others, and take care.